What else can we tell you? I'm afraid to say that although we have arrived into a session which normally gives you a few more pointers towards what's going to happen for the weekend, we have a McLaren, by the look of it, stranded out on the circuit. And that is, I think, with a punctured tyre or a wheel that's coming loose, certainly, on that left rear corner. 54 is the car that has stopped. It is a tyre off the rim, I think, John Watson.
Yes, it looks like the tyre's detached from the rim, although that's been caused by picking up something on the racetrack. Mind you, the Lamborghinis have just come off from their Super Trofeo event. Can't imagine there was much on the circuit, so maybe just one of those things. Anyway, the car is being now removed by one of the trucks. There's a red flag around the circuit. And this is further eating in to this 1.5 hour session. In the meantime, Laurens Vanthoor had gone quicker than anybody had gone in the morning free practice session by the best part of almost a tenth of a second, which is actually a bunch of time. But it indicates that Laurens Vanthoor, certainly the performance of this morning, comfortably being repeated here much later in the afternoon.
Now, you've just arrived after a perambulation up and down the paddock and the pit lane, and then you've come round to the other side of the circuit to the box. Weather compared to what we had for free practice? Warmer, colder, windier? What?
It is, well, the wind is pretty much as it was this morning.
Okay.
That's static. Ambient temperature, you know, in the commentary booth, very warm, very comfortable. Outside in the pit lane, distinctly cooler than it was this morning. So I think that while the track conditions are probably not bad, the ambient itself is low, so it's going to be the same old story of you go out, you do a number of laps, you try and get the best out of the best of the rest of your tyres, the hangover from Monza. You don't want to really use your new sets until qualifying, but if the weather is as predicted and it's going to be a wet or part wet race, you might think to use your new sets to your advantage to gain track position, because as we saw in Monza, when you have a field of 742 cars, oh sorry, it's only 62 cars, it feels like 762, you might as well take advantage of the best rubber you've got to give yourself the best track position. As in Monza, people who didn't have good grid positions never really made the progress I felt most of them, or some of them, should have done.
The car that stopped, just a quick word about one of the drivers, Ollie Webb, British driver. It was him, I think, that was staring at his punctured tyre on that McLaren, but the car having to be retrieved. It's interesting that we've had quite a few stoppages in Blancpain sessions today, rather than full course yellows that we were able to use at Monza. Not quite sure why it's a different system here, but it's a question that I'll pose and try and get an answer to overnight. The session will restart in half a minute anyway, so that car just goes onto one of the many Silverstone access roads on the inside and out of harm's way, and then we're good to go once again. So, hypothetically, you're a driver in Blancpain, John, just go with me on this, and you're staring at an entry list of 60 plus cars. Do you think to yourself, that's going to be fun, or do you think that's going to be hell on wheels?
Yes, I do. I would agree with you, totally. It's a bit of both. Obviously, it's a big challenge, and the challenge is to master the remaining 61 entrants, of whom maybe half a dozen or 9 you might consider to be in your sort of time scale in terms of lap time. As far as the rest are concerned, the main concern is obviously, are they going to be track aware of quicker cars coming through? And once we get into the race, after maybe 15 or even 10 minutes, you will be catching up and getting involved in overtaking those at the back of the field. And that's where the cooperation, track etiquette, you might say, comes in. But at the same time, some of the drivers are not the most professional. They're not sort of in their first flush of youth. They're probably over 25. You know, they're there to race and enjoy themselves. And part of the success of Blancpain Enduro, and we've seen success in Monza, massive entry. Silverstone, massive entry. Spa 24, can't imagine, let alone 6 hours at Paul Ricard.
Yeah.
Because there are many racing drivers who are in that sort of Pro-Am or Am category who love GT racing. They love getting into the meat and two veg of an endurance race where they can settle in. And it's not a sort of a squint and you miss it sprint race. So there's this balance to strike, and it's you can understand the frustration of the professional drivers in the top teams, and equally I can understand the frustration of the drivers who are probably my age and maybe in some cases younger, who are, that was quite funny, I thought, who are here,
but you're such a young man.
They're such an important and integral part of the Blancpain Endurance Series. So it's a matter of you try to make the best of what you got. And if you can identify the car, you might get a clue as to who might be driving it, or your team might be able to help you. And that's one of the important elements, I think, within the team. If there is communication where you've got a tracker system, or you can maybe advise your driver, you are going to be coming up against a car that's lapping maybe 4 or 6 seconds a lap slower than you, to help you find a way to get past it cleanly and quickly, not to get trapped behind it, in other words, not to lose your momentum. So all these things are there to be sort of put into the mix, and the planning, the strategy that every race and every race driver and every race team have got to consider.
I sometimes wonder, if you're a bronze driver and you're relatively new to Blancpain, whether having such a strong championship is almost, not a deterrent, but you must spend so much time having to be conscious of getting out of the way of the quick cars that maybe some of the enjoyment actually disappears.
I think there's a balance in that, but ultimately if you wish to compete in an event of this stature, this quality, then you have to accept that you, as much as the drivers, what I would call the young charging professional drivers, they were just seeing an example of that, of one of the Ferraris sort of wandering around in the middle of the racetrack, not knowing whether the Mercedes was going to go one side or the other. But there's responsibilities on everybody's side. So if you're in that category where you are a gentleman driver who's really here to enjoy endurance racing, as opposed to a youngster who's come out of maybe single-seater racing, pretty high level, who only knows one way, which is flat out, each has got to accommodate one another, and that's a learn for both parties. And hopefully we will see cooperation when it comes to overtaking. And I don't want to see drivers having to be bullied out of the way. I would like to see drivers showing respect at the same time as having respect shown back.
Sure, agreed. And it is encouraging that year after year we do get new people coming into the series. 21 you're looking at is definitely not a new combination, and there is a new driver, one of them in the Ferrari, because you've got Gary Kondakov along with Alexander Moisiev. They're both new this year, Riccardo Ragazzi with them, and that's gone way off. Is that at Luffield?
It is, yes, it is Luffield.
Yes.
And that's well off. I mean,
it's carried some speed, hasn't it?
Well, absolutely. I can't imagine why or how he got into the gravel so deeply, because normally you're well on the brakes on the entry into Luffield, and it looks like he didn't really slow down. I mean, that's quite a long way.
Kondakov had a number of spins at Monza. I'm just looking to see whether he's the driver behind the wheel. He is, I'm afraid. Yes, Gary Kondakov, the business development man at Kaspersky, and he's put it in the gravel, and as we've said, a long way off there.
I mean, the gravel here does arrest a car pretty quickly, so we've got is that a red flag, or was it maybe I just saw something red on the bank, and of course there's certainly a waved yellow flag down coming into the corner, but so far nothing to indicate that they might want to stop this session. That's pretty well beached, and it's not likely that even those, I was going to say burly, stout, brilliant British marshals get it all in. No, nudge, nudge, no pack drill, guys and girls, because many of the marshals here are also girls.
But it's going to be a big ask, I think, to get that out of the gravel bed. Interesting, isn't it, how the session was stopped for a car with a puncture, and yet they're trying to push that out under a waved yellow. Now, John's getting all excited about number 1 Audi.
Yes, because this is the car driven by Laurens van Voor, it is now being driven by Robin Freins, his co-driver, and another of the youngsters, and referring to the youngsters coming out of GP2, GP3, other forms of single-seater racing, and coming into GT racing. They bring with them that mentality, which is there's my way or there's the highway. There's no compromise, and they're having to learn driving a much heavier car, lots less downforce, not the same kind of feel. You've got to wait a little bit more for the car to take its bite or its set. But Robin Freins is doing a good job, did a stunning job for Laurens van Voor and WRT at Brands Hatch 2 weekends ago.
A lot of people expected great things in his single-seater career because he was good in the junior ranks, and then it was seemingly nothing to do with ability. It was all about money.
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much, I think, won everything. Interestingly, I found out when we talked to them at Brands Hatch after the race victory that Laurens van Voor and Robin Freins used to race each other in karts.
Right.
So they sort of went slightly different directions. Robin got a slightly better bite of the Formula 1 or GP2 cherry than Laurens did. But now, Laurens is the king, if you like, of WRT, and Robin Freins is coming in as the understudy, having both raced in karts as kids.
Interesting. Now, we've been talking not only about the Audi, but also about Gary Kondakov's Ferrari, and that's the replay of how he got there, but we still come back to the same phrase, John. He's carried some speed.
He's carried a lot of speed. I mean, it's strange because the entry into left field is not particularly quick, and it looks as if where his car has ended up, he was carrying more speed than certainly I would have thought would have been necessary.
As I say, Kondakov did have a few dramas at Monza. Now, number one, Robin Frins is on track behind the Acuria Cos BMW there, the Bryant Model McCaig car. Going through Abbey, up through Farm now. We'll get the line out of the way early on in the session. Traffic everywhere. Right, we've done that now. And it's going to be so busy, not just for this session, but qualifying and, of course, for the race itself come tomorrow.
Well, there is intelligent cooperation between two cars in two different categories. BMW seeing and recognizing that the car behind was the number one Audi, which is a very quick car, and he pulled over. He didn't really lose an awful lot of time, and he allowed fundamentally a quicker car to go through. So that's what I was describing, or trying to just give an illustration as to how drivers can help one another rather than getting backed up and losing your patience or temper or both. So
it can be done.
It can be done. It's not difficult,
no.
but you've got to have both partners actually beginning to do the same thing at the same time.
There's the live snatch, as it's so called, on the 50 Ferrari, and you can hear the car dragging its way through the gravel bed. Gary Kondakov is the red-faced man behind the wheel of it, who's hoping that he's going to be allowed back into the session.
I hope that wasn't meant to be a pun.
Far from it. It's too late in the day. Now, there's number one, Robin Frins at the wheel. New to GT racing this year. The career move didn't really start great, did it, at Nagaro for the Sprint Series when he had it off and damaged the car, but he's got that out of his mind and he's come back very strongly.
Well, in fact, it just illustrates that when a track temperature is low and you've got fresh tyres on, haven't reached full operating temperature. His co-driver, Laurens van Thor, this morning, I think on his first flying lap, again at Luffield, had a quick loop, just spun around. And the Audi is a car, phenomenal car, won everything. But it again is a big problem for McLaren. That's a spin at Copse and having trouble getting the engine fired up again as the fuel burns from the turbos. Just open the throttle and get that thing running again. Yeah,
that's the Fabian Turner, Nicola Armindo, Miguel Ramos car of the Tempto Racing team. There's Gary Kondakov, who's trying to get back into the session.
Rather sheepishly,
yes,
as he creeps. No one's going to notice me coming slowly, are they?
Can you have a sheepish prancing horse?
Creep.
Yes.
Getting closer and closer to the outside of Luffield. So he's got to watch really all the way down to Brooklands, because if he tries to drop the clutch on what is probably still damp, if not wet grass, she'll just spin the rear wheels. He's not going to move forward. So it's got to be rather slowly, gently with the throttle and with the clutch.
It's like coming out of a T-junction at rush hour, isn't it? Because there's always this flow of traffic. And he's got to do a virtual U-turn anyway. Yeah,
and he's going to come onto the circuit with tyres that are probably damp, but he manages to do it, and that's... Oh, look at the gravel coming out of the back of the car.
You know that traffic jam that you're in, and there's some flash Harry in a Ferrari that wants to push in and nobody wants to let him? It's a bit like that. Anyway, Gary Kondakov is away. He brings the gravel with him. He's down the pit lane. He's not having a very happy baptism in Blancpain. There is 55, still trying to get going at Copse. That's Nicola Armindo at the wheel.
He's trying to fire it up. You can see that it's the big shoots of flame coming from the rear, but he's now managed to get the car operating and running normally, so he'll make his way back, I doubt. He'll do another lap. He'll probably come into the pits and just have a quick check around and see what the problems are.
So he's back running again. And Armindo was 18th at that point, so he's rejoined and he's back running again. Frins is quicker than 32, which again is shown as Stuart Leonard, but I've got to say that must be a Michael Meadows effort. Michael did tell me at lunchtime he had driven, even though his name never appeared on the screen, so I think there's a little transponder setting issue on that car.
There's a car that was stunning in Monza, but looks, for some reason, and I don't understand why, looks decidedly a lot twitchier than it did round the rather slower corners at Monza than we have at Silverstone. Looked absolutely planted everywhere you looked around Monza, but so far, and we've only just got a glimpse of the car in this second free practice session, the first one, it didn't look a comfortable car to drive.
I would go along with that, absolutely. This is the 63, the Bortolotti Venturini Zhao car. similar problems as John has explained for number 19, which is the one that was so good at Monza, and it's again hopping all over the road there.
It looks very stiff in the rear.
Whereas this car has been quick here and was quick at Monza. This is the 333 Ferrari. Norbert Siedler, Rinat Salikov, who inherited the win outright. They've got Marco Seefried with them as well this weekend. And let's go on board for a lap of Silverstone.
Can't beat the sound of an aspirated V8 engine up to 9. Well, then there's probably about 7,000 RPM because of the restrictors. But anyway, it just sounds glorious. When they put a set of turbos and translate a 458 into a 488, it'll be a different vehicle.
Absolutely. Siedler's the man at the wheel, and the Austrian driver pressing on. Races Porsches as well as Ferraris, so he's got a foot in both camps. Down to the end of Vale, bite the curb.
Yeah, a little bit.
Too much?
I didn't like the entry. It was a little bit soft in the entry, which threw him a little bit too far to the right to make a clean entry into the beginning of the club corner. Nevertheless, it's still probably pretty effective on the stopwatch, down a gear into Abbey, and just having to again feather the throttle just to get that feel and confidence from the seat of the pants that is so vital.
Map of the circuit on the steering wheel. Does that actually do you any good?
It's not a map. I think it's just sometimes when you come in, you just say on corner 9. Because very often drivers, the names of some of the corners and some of the circuits, they can't even pronounce, let alone know what they stand for. And Silverstone, lots of the corners have got, well, we went through this with the Wellington Straight, but places like Chapel or Maggots, Chapel, Stowe, Club, they've all got a very historic significance in Silverstone.
Siedler fighting it through Luffield, gets it back to the clipping point, back on the power. At the start of this lap he was 11th. The sectors aren't too flash, but it's not a bad effort, this. Again, it's not all about time, but towards the end you might start seeing people thinking about qualifying tomorrow morning, but track conditions could be different.
I think track conditions tomorrow morning will most likely be dry from what we've seen in the weather forecasts. Where we have an issue is, I think, coming up to the early part of the afternoon when we're just about ready to get this event underway, and we may see the big belt of rain that's coming from the northwest down to the southeast just swamping this part of central middle England, and hopefully Silverstone will avoid it, because wet races, while they're entertaining in some respects, they are not necessarily always the best racing.
Agreed.
Get good results occasionally, but not necessarily the best racing.
Fully wet, start to finish, not much fun, but if it's changeable and people are having to make guesswork on tyres, all in favour of.
Thinking on your feet.
Yes.
And that's the skill of the really good teams, that they can anticipate. They've got probably meteorological information beyond that we get on our local TV, so they can say in half an hour the track will be in this condition, and they therefore can advise the drivers and prepare accordingly.
Back on board with Norbert Siedler. This is Village. Paddle shift, of course, so his hands don't move off the wheel. Up towards the loop.
He got a big bit of oversteer coming out of here the last time. This time a little bit more stable.
So the Ferrari powers down Wellington Straight. Have a look at the very top of the shot. You'll see 32 Aston, the black and yellow car of Stuart Leonard's team, with former Caterham champion Paul Wilson. Stuart Leonard himself came out of Caterham's, and Michael Meadows, who's a double Carrera Cup GB champion, proving he can drive other sports cars because he's good in the Aston as good as he is in a Porsche. And that's gone very strongly today, that car. In both sessions it's been up within the top 10, hasn't it, number 32?
Yes, it's
good.
It's almost, if you wish, if you go back into the glory days of sports car racing in the 50s, D-type Jaguars were always great at Silverstone and rubbish at Goodwood, and Aston Martins were always brilliant at Goodwood and rubbish at Silverstone. But here, I think the current Aston Martin that we're looking at, it's pretty much, if you wanted a Silverstone layout, there's not a lot more you could do to improve an Aston Martin.
Oh, it was here 2 years ago, wasn't it? We had the Aston Martin win.
Yeah,
Darren Turner, and Fred McAveeky and Stefan Booker, which was a great result. Pro car and 3 very pro drivers. So Michael Meadows onto the Hanger Straight. drivers cycling through the pits. That's the Phoenix Audi, the Winkelhock Thong Lee car. And we've got a driver change. So door closed, and the car about to be released back into the session. We've got a change for second in the times. 63. Luca Bortolotti has got himself up to second. That's interesting. The Lamborghini then, second fastest now. Yep. Bortolotti going well. So maybe, although you correctly identified some of the problems, perhaps they're working through them.
Indeed, and that's what teams are doing. I mean, they've got a certain amount of time and they've got to go through their drivers, and some drivers know the circuit, some don't know the circuit. The Lamborghini is new to Silverstone, it's never tested here before. It didn't look, the car it looked in Monza. We keep going back to the stunning performance of the Gottfried Grosser run, Hurricanes. Here, I would have said, what have they done to it? They've changed it and they've not made an improvement. Maybe over lunchtime they've gone back. Certainly going through the few friendly pit lanes or pit garages, some teams have gone down the spring change route to try and get maybe a little bit better turn-in or better traction, depending what it is you're looking for. And one of the things that I think has come out of that is if you are a little bit stiff on the rear of the car, while it might assist in terms of turning, it ultimately loses grip because it's skipping across, it's sliding, partly I suspect because of the combination of the tyre and the track temperature. The two things are not actually working in the optimum temperature range, and therefore you're trying to cheat the car, but in doing so you're actually hurting it as well. So they've gone back in the case of one team. I'm not mentioning who it is because they're very friendly to me, but they've gone back to where they were. It may not be ideal, but it's better than the change that they made.
I'm with you. Yeah. So this Lambo is second, and the other car, number 19, the almost Monza winner, is 11th. Fabio Babini in the wheel of it at the moment, ahead, in fact, of the 3 Ferrari.
Well, this one of the two, it does. This looks better. Did he break the speed limit coming in there?
I wasn't so much pointing at that. There's the line, but I was sort of pointing at a Lamborghini driven by a pro who will brake at the line, coming up to an amateur who's just dawdling down the pit lane. Correct. And you can lose time on that come the race, of course.
Very much so. Again, you know, that's the kind of thing you'd like to believe, and the driver briefing could be pointed out. Yeah. That, you know, you've got, there's the pit lane at which you must be down to 50 kilometers per hour. But, you know, you don't have to lift off 100 yards before you maintain. So you think about everybody else and help yourself.
And, of course, you come up behind the car too quickly. Contact is possible. We have seen it in the past. Now, Nissan, 23. This is the Pro Cup car. 23, the sort of works Nissan number, if you like. And Alex Buncombe's at the wheel. And if I say he's 59th, then it means that he's not done many laps yet.
No. And he is here with his little child, Austin Buncombe, little boy.
I met him yesterday.
You look like you met him yesterday. And anyway, Alex, you know, again, they're working through all the options. This is a car they believe they've got a good car. This is a quick car, quick in a lap. I'm just waiting to see what Alex can drag out of it. So 59th currently, last lap at 2:09.380. is sort of a lap that I would probably do.
There's certainly more to come from Alex.
Very much so.
And we know that he's quick. Third generation racer. His dad, a successful saloon car racer. His grandfather, a quick racer as well. Austin might be the fourth generation yet of Buncombe's. And of course, Alex's brother Chris, former Le Mans class winner. Now his manager.
So just again looking for that inevitable track position to try and make the best of this particular lap. He's got about maybe 2 seconds behind the car, just going up there. And that's the Russia BMW. He's going to be all over that on like a rash going down into Stowe, I would assume. He certainly hopes he's going to be anyway, because he will not want to lose any momentum. This is what will be his, I suppose, first full flying lap.
Through the Beckett's S's. When the Bentley came along, we talked about that looking a big car. The Nissan still looks big, but you've kind of got used to it, I suppose.
Yeah,
now.
Bentley and Nissan are the two largest frontal areas and also the two with the highest centre of gravity. Whereas the Bentley is clearly very light on its feet for a large car. And we saw when it was running behind one of the private Ferraris how much quicker. Now that might have been down to the driver and the car, not just the car. So the Bentley we know is mega quick through Beckett's. I would suspect it's probably quicker than the Nissan is, because it's just got this really fine balance between, you know, drivability and just on the edge.
Yeah. Looking back, you've got the Jaguar there, the Emile Frey Jaguar, the Frey Bart Gardel driven car, which had issues in the free practice session, but it's good that it's still circulating.
Well, not only is it's not losing an inch to the tail. In fact, it's closing up on the Nissan coming through, as Alex Buncombe again has lifted off.
To try and buy some clear track space, one assumes.
I'm assuming. I mean, ultimately, you're going to have to give it one at some point, but he's still trying to find that clear lap, and he's now putting himself in the way of one of the Mercedes coming through. So he's again just looking in his mirrors, frustratingly. What am I going to do? When am I going to get a chance to get one clear lap? So he's on it now again, coming down Wellington Straight, because he needs to be careful. The Ferrari's catching him. Don't actually overtake him.
Exactly. That's the Duncan Cameron car that's going to come charging past in a moment, I think, because Alex has lifted.
Quickest.
Wow. Straight through against Cameron.
Yeah.
Not hanging about, is he?
Well, last lap for Cameron was a 4:30, so that's clearly why he was quicker.
That will be onto a flying lap now for Duncan Cameron.
And we believe for the second or the third time for Alex Buncombe.
But if the session continues like this, as you say, he's going to have to bite the bullet sooner or later, isn't he? He's going to have to do a lap.
You're going to have to say, look, with the traffic behind me, I've got an Audi ahead of me, I've got the 333 Ferrari bearing down on me. Runs very wide coming out of Copse, so that's not particularly ideal. Maybe running so slowly and maybe letting the tyre temperature drop away. Oh, suddenly I maybe need to pick up the pace, even though there is traffic all around me, to get my tyres into the window where they're giving me the grip I need.
Now 59 McLaren you're looking at. This is the Nicolas Lapierre, Adrian Quaife, Hobbs, Alvaro Parent car that was going fairly strongly in the free practice session and coming out of Aintree. And this is the view. Just
gone fourth quickest as well, Nicolas Lapierre.
Excellent job.
So 2 minutes 2.040. Let's have a look and see. The Frenchman enters into Brook. Doesn't really make an apex per se.
Has he bailed from this now?
I think he's coming in. He's going to come in on this one. Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
But he couldn't be so... No, he's not. He's staying out. So the lap he's on, compare that to his last 2:02. I reckon that's about a 2:04. So he comes across the start-finish line. I was wrong. It was 2:06.
So near and yet so far.
So obviously what he was doing was just, again, what we've just watched Alex Buncombe seeking, and that's to find that, you have that one lap of space on the track.
He also went very wide coming out of Abbey, I gather, Nicolas Lapierre. It's good to have him still in top-line racing, because he was treated, you could say, a little bit shabbily by Toyota last year.
I don't understand.
We never really got to the bottom of it.
If you're so wide out of Abbey, he almost ended up on the Deptford Road. The Deptford Road's in the opposite direction to Abbey.
Depends which way you're heading.
Well, if you're driving the track in reverse order, then yes, but not in the correct order. No.
So Lapierre at Stowe. As I say, Toyota had him as part of the WEC program last year, and then he was stood down without being officially dropped, and then he was kind of dropped.
Slightly odd story.
I know. As I say, we never got to the bottom of it. No. And Toyota was pretty tight-lipped.
Yeah, and they're clambering over the curve in the first part of Club Corner, which is never, in my view, ideal. I mean, it doesn't look to be doing anything good. It doesn't look to be doing anything bad.
But if you have a
McLaren, delivered a good time. But
yeah, I was going to say, if you've got a McLaren up there, hypothetically, if this stayed, then if this were a grid, and McLaren could qualify fourth, that's very encouraging in contrast to Monza.
It is.
I know this isn't the grid. I know a lot of things can change come qualifying, but if the pace is genuine and it can stay up there, that's good news.
And again, I mean, just walking down the pit lane, lots of teams have got lots of nice, shiny new rubber. Some of those teams are going to have a little sneak look towards the end of the session by putting on one of those sets of rubber, not do too many laps, maybe just one flying lap, hoping that there'll be a clear track as the McLaren goes into the pit lane. So Nicolas Lapierre, having done a 2 minute 2:040, that's not a lap that's been done on a scruffy set of tyres that have been run at Monza, run here, maybe in the bronze, well, not in that case, but certainly in the 1.5 hour session. So people are just, cherry picking the moments to to try something to get a feel for where they may be come qualifying early Sunday morning, starting at 9 o'clock local time.
Maxime Soulet, Bentley number 8, 10th fastest. That is looking a lot more like it. Now, where is the 7 Bentley? 36th. Boo. That's not very good, is it?
No, it's not. Strange. Again, we saw the car here 1 year ago. Brilliant. We've seen little bits of it here this morning. Stephen Kane on board. Really, really quick into Beckett's. Almost, in fact, I would say as flat as you can be in a GT car. And that's a big commitment, but only because the car is with them to do it.
Of course, the Pro Cup this year, 23 cars, which is a grid in itself, really.
Well,
so it's hugely competitive.
I mean, it's the success of Blancpain Enduro. I mean, I've never ever seen a race series with such support.
No, it's astonishing, isn't it?
You might get a one-off race, Spa 24 or Le Mans or Nürburgring 24, where you get half of Germany taking part. They even have a class for Trabants. It takes them.
Are there any left?
It takes them an hour to do a lap.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Drivers nearly starve en route. Now, number 1 Audi tops the time still. How's Soulet getting on? He's down to 11th. Why is he down to 11th? Steph Dusseldorp up to 4th.
Absolutely, just going to notice that. Steph Dusseldorp, Mercedes-Benz into the 2:01s within 3/4 of a second of the time set by Laurens van Voort. Again, was that the skill and the brilliance of the Dutchman, or was he utterly compromised by a brand new set of tyres?
Answers tomorrow at 9 o'clock, probably, when we get to qualifying, as you suggest. But hey, Dusseldorp is a good driver.
Yeah.
You wouldn't necessarily say he was a Vantour.
No, he's not, but he's a very good driver. And I wouldn't also say that the Mercedes SLS is an Audi R8, whatever. I mean, the Mercedes strength is in its durability and its longevity, and it's a brilliant 24-hour car. But to think of it as, I mean, a 3-hour race is not really a sprint race, but in terms of endurance racing, it's relatively short.
Yeah.
So that's a strong time from Steph Dusseldorp, and that gives them encouragement. You know, again, everybody is wanting to be in the front 5 rows to ensure when the lights go out that they can get a clean break and not have to shuffle and whatever to make their way up through some of the cars that automatically or normally they would assume to be ahead of.
Because the danger is that you end up in somebody else's incident, especially with so many cars all going for the same bit of track.
Yeah, I mean, when the lights go out, there'll be cars coming through Brooklands, I imagine.
Yeah, I'll go along with that. Yeah,
because the lights will go out on the start grid with 62 cars strung out. Well, somebody's just gone wide coming out of Brooklands, one of the Audis, I think. But there is the 7 Bentley, which we haven't seen very much of so far. And whereabouts are they now? They're 35th. Yes, Andy Merrick in behind the wheel.
Andy Merrick is somebody who has done well out of sports car racing in a sense. He's done GT racing, he's done prototype racing, but go back to his Formula 3 Class B season, that was derailed because he was pretty seriously ill, wasn't he? And had to stand down for the season, and then came back into sports cars and has developed into a good sports car racer. Looked after by the redoubtable Dave Price,
who's also recovering.
It's true, yes. Good character, Dave. Wish him well.
Yeah, he was unwell recently, so on the road to recovery. I've actually got a Dave Price constructed, I suppose you call it an off-road bicycle.
Really?
Which I bought from Dave Price, God, I think 20 odd years ago. And it's still in the garage.
Used?
Sparingly. But at the time, this was, as technology-wise in bicycles, it was leading edge. I mean, there was really Dave did a brilliant job. I think he even ran a team of off-road bicyclists. I'm going to take it out and send it to the bicycle tune-up shop.
And then you can off-road on your way fishing.
I might have to put a set of road rubber on.
I'm sure Pirelli will help you out as the tyre supplier for Blancpain. You're looking at Andy Merrick finishing his lap. A man from just outside Chester in the northwest of England. His dad used to be a very rapid club racer and came back a few years ago in historic racing with a nice fleet of cars, Peter Merrick. So this session, as we make the point in free practice, it's not about being quick, it's not about times. They're interesting, and when we get a bit concerned about a car being only 36th or going off the road, Duncan Cameron, Matt Griffin's Ferrari does, the time, the position, it doesn't matter that much because you don't know what fuel load they're on, you don't know what tyres they're doing, you don't know what program they're running to. But what you can look at, as John has been good at pointing out these things, is how a car is looking. And the Lamborghini is looking any more stable?
I think this car is looking more like a race car as a Jaguar, and it struggles and is so I'm going to say the Jaguar just at Woodcut and literally at the foot of our commentary booth. You could almost jump out and over the wing, I beg your pardon, it's the wing. Yeah, just getting excited there. So it stopped in the exit of Club, and never really had a happy life,
no,
this car.
No. As Big Cat to go, it had a very full diary.
When it's running, it can actually show good speed.
Yeah, exactly. But you sort of wonder when the team will get to the point where they say, all right, we like this championship, we want to be competitive, enough's enough, we're going to buy a ... I think they had an Aston Martin for a season. But they've gone back to try and get the Jaguar. And it's nice to have it on the grid, but the frustration for the drivers is just plain to see. And a red flag.
Yeah, I'm not surprised because it's in a part of the racetrack which a lot of drivers have been abusing.
Yeah.
So as a consequence of that, rather than try to stop the abuse of the racetrack, which has sort of so far proved singularly unsuccessful,
Yes.
they're going to red flag it, bring the car, or remove the car to safety, certainly. Whether it will be returned to one of the internal roads where it can then get returned to the Jaguar garage, but I suspect it's as far away from the pit lane here we're using. What's the Heritage Pits?
Heritage Pits.
Heritage Pits.
They call them nowadays, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to be somehow or other returned to the inside of the circuit, and there's no easy access to do so. They could put it in a flatbed and take it across the bridge, I suppose, one of the many bridges at Silverstone that give access into the centre of the circuit. I just don't know what it is that always causes this car to stop.
I'm also a little bit surprised in a way that Gabriele Gardel perseveres with it, because a decade ago he was a leading light in Ferraris, winning the FIA GT Championship, and he must get to a point where he thinks really isn't worth the hassle of this. I know drivers want to keep racing and want to keep their names known, but it's not doing anything for him, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, the thing that's attractive about Jaguar is it's the brand, and they've got a phenomenal racing heritage. And I suppose if you look at the car, it's got a good basic chassis, it's got a strong engine. How you amalgamate all those elements into a fine race car, well, that's maybe a slightly different. It might need a little bit more depth on the development side than a single team's capable of doing.
Now, we've talked about how well Nissans have been going. Darren Cox, Nissan's motorsport manager, is here with OJ Borg.
Darren Cox, we're at the point of the weekend in this testing where you'd sort of know how the cars are feeling. How are they feeling?
Yeah, the guys said that they're really happy with the balance of the cars. We could do without the red flags, of course. This isn't ideal. We just bolted a new set of tyres on the 23 car, but this is home for us. This is our home circuit. Obviously, GT Academy's based here, so we've got 4 of the GT Academy winners that are in the car that feel very much at home. So, yeah, if we're not good here, we're not going to be good anywhere. The car's very good on big open circuits, but long straights, fast corners. That's what you got here.
So you've got very new drivers, but as you said, they've done a lot of testing here. They should know this circuit.
Yeah, they do, and they know the circuit very well in the virtual world and in the real world, and yeah, they really do feel at home here. You know, we found them here, so they're comfortable here, and we've got friends and family of the British guys as well, so yeah, it feels a comfortable place to be. And of course, now we've got our UK base for the LMP1 project just half a mile over the road, so yeah, we pretty much feel like we're at home this weekend.
And just looking at the Great British Summertime, inclement is one way we could probably put it. If the rain does come down, how will this GTR handle it?
Well, yeah, this morning when I was walking my dog in Winchester, it was 22 degrees, so I don't know quite what's happened here. I think the weather's always the same here, isn't it? No, we're fine in the wet around here, no problem at all. We just, don't like slow corners in this car, so wet or dry, yeah, we'll be okay. Prefer it to stay dry, to be quite honest.
Why is that?
Throwing any variables, we think we're quick enough for the weekend, so if you start throwing in variables, then you have to start guessing. But what's amazing is this car here, the black one, was doing the Nürburgring 24 Hours last weekend. So, you know, it's a little bit Trigger's broom. We've changed quite a lot of the bits on it, but yeah, that car's a 24-hour veteran already. First race he did 24 hours, and it comes here the next week and does this one.
Looks good in black.
So everyone keeps telling me, but the corporate colour's white. So yeah, we used to run them in black as well, but it does look mega in black, and it's good that we can keep it there for this weekend.
Talking of 24-hour races, how are the preparations for Le Mans?
Yeah, really good. I've been over there this afternoon. We've got 3 cars in various states of undress, as you'd imagine, with 8 days to go to the test day. You know, everyone's presuming where we're going to be in terms of pace. Honestly, no one knows. We've got a simulation. We're quite comfortable with our pace. Everyone's guessing. You know, the fans and the not so big fans on social media are telling us how fast they think we're going to be. We'll find out. But you know, test day is going to be test day. You know, we're going to start really seeing where we are on the first stint of tyres on Saturday during the race.
I know you're going to be coy when I ask this. Is a win possible at Le Mans?
Absolutely not this year. Absolutely not, unless it rains for 24 hours. But no, this year's not about winning. This year's about getting as many laps as we can, seeing where we are. We know where we've got development in the car already, and we're just going to concentrate on developing the car this year and gathering as much data as we can for the following year. But you know, we're racers, so we're not going to be tooling round. We're going to be on it. But you know, look what Porsche did last year. They finished 11th in the DNF. So that's how difficult it is. So we'll just see how it goes. But as you can see, I'm reasonably comfortable about it. The guys are doing a brilliant job. The guys have been working their backsides off, and that's all we can do, try our best and see where we are.
Thank you very much, Darren Cox.
Cheers.
He sort of got to the end of that comment by talking more and more quickly about it, and probably as quick as the car goes itself.
We've gone green, as you would have spotted, and we are back live for 32 and a half minutes of this session, and of course the Le Mans 24 hours next month. As far as Blancpain is concerned, there's a very important 24-hour race in July, because we're off to Spa, and if you've never been to the Spa 24 hours, first of all, why not? And secondly, get yourself there, because it's mega, isn't it?
Well, it's a very special event. I mean, it's I think look, there's a number of 24-hour events around the world. I think Spa is, if not the most challenging, it's got to be vying for that because of the nature of the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, and also because, as often is the case in circuits that are slightly more elevated and you've got forest all around you, it's like a big sponge waiting for any cloud to come by just to soak up any moisture. So weather is a big factor. It's a tough race, whatever way you look at it. I mean, the race last year, it was like a war field. I've never seen anything in the first 6 hours as we saw, and please, we don't see that again, because it was ugly.
It was a weird race, wasn't it? And in the end, when it sort of calmed down and you could get your teeth into the race, it was a good race, but all that drama early on was a bit over the top. And,
yeah, I mean, the proper battle was the battle for the victory between the VDS BMW and WRT-Audi, and that was literally up until the last hour, until everybody's final pit stop window hand had been shown. You couldn't second guess who was going to do anything.
We hope the VDS will be on the grid again and competitive. Of course, they were at the Nürburgring 24 hours last weekend. They were in the ELMS race last weekend. So the team's still busy, still active. Let's hope that they've got another good 2-car effort for Spa in a month's time. Right, what's going on at Silverstone? Well, there is the Schneiderless Mercedes, which is now Alexei Karachev, Denis Vashek and Christophe Bouchou making a welcome return to Blancpain.
Yeah, Christophe Bouchou, his name keeps coming up in GT racing, and particularly associated with the Mercedes team. An enigma almost, isn't he? I mean, a man who's got enormous ability and talent, but somehow or other seems to, have tangents.
If you believe people that have raced with him about his personality, it's a bit like Bob Wallach and how people regarded him as very good, but he could be such hard work out of the car. And he either liked you or he just did not get on with you at all. And many people say that Bouchou is a bit the same.
I don't know Christophe Bouchou. I knew Bob Wallach because we raced, in fact, in my beginnings in Formula 2. And so we knew each other through that. But then he was a young up-and-coming driver. He hadn't evolved into being Brilliant Bob, as he was christened by some of the lesser scribes that sometimes grace our magazines.
Have you read the book about it? The French-written book on Bob Wallach?
I wasn't aware there was a book in the first place.
Yeah, it came out a year or two ago. It's not a bad read. But I'm sure you would have an opinion on some of the things that are said about him. Because,
I have an opinion on most things, David, as you well know.
I have spotted that, yes.
But I haven't read the book. I didn't know there was one on board. Back on board with the Bentley, so let's see what happens as we go down Hanger Straight. And I wonder how many gear. Again, we just keep an eye. Even he goes down 1 gear. 2 gears, and he's 3 in fact, into. So we're just trying to keep up with the. It's difficult to tell because the blip isn't quite as noticeable in this as it is in others.
It looks nice and stable, this car.
It is a good car. It's a brilliant chassis. I mean, I think one of the biggest ironies is that the engineering in this car has been done by a team that's basic meat and 2 veggies rallying.
Yes, that's right.
But actually, when you think about the suspension in a rally car, what it's got to do, absorb massive, surface changes, jumps, yumps. They've done a great job. The engineering up at M Sport up in Cumbria, I think, I'm really impressed by how good they've transformed what is a car that weighs 2,500 kilograms in its basic showroom form into something, or just under 2,500 kilograms, into something that is exceptionally nimble and a really, really good chassis and a very thoroughly thought out package, not just the suspension but all the bits and pieces. So when it comes to doing it, if you have to change an engine or a major part in the car, it's been thought out to do it as quickly and as simply as possible.
There's a nice piece in Autosport a few weeks ago with Malcolm Wilson about this project, and the point was made in there that when the call came, are you interested in a GT3 program, Malcolm had to Google GT3 and find out what he was about to get himself into, because this, as you say, is such a world away from rallying.
Yeah.
There is a World Championship rally on this weekend, which is, I'm not quite, whether Malcolm is there or here or splitting his time between both, not sure, I've not spotted him here yet.
I would imagine that he'll be helicoptering in at some point at Silverstone to keep an eye on the progress of this car and his team.
But Matthew, his son, who's raced and rallied competitively, oversees this project. He's the team manager. So they're in traffic. Look, the Mercedes getting in the way at just the wrong moment through the Beckett's S's. The session's got 27 minutes still on the clock, incidentally.
And this session has gone somewhat more quickly than the session earlier this morning, largely because of the stoppages with red flags, and of course we picked up the beginning of this session after 10 minutes, so we were still broadcasting the Lamborghini Super Trofeo podium ceremony. So let's keep just a little eye and see where the Bentley looks sweet. Sliding a little bit, I noticed they're just coming midway through the corner, so I suspect again it's probably running on pretty well-worn rubber.
We've had an improvement in the times up to second. Has gone the number 6 Phoenix Audi. That's the sort of second generation R8 LMS Ultra. Whereas number 2 here is the WRT car, which was the number. Sorry, I tell you a lie. This is the Pro-Am car. 3 was the one that was a Gen 2 at Monza, but they've gone back to an earlier car. But this is the Pro-Am one. So this is your David Halliday, James Nash, Philippe Gaillard car. Yeah. And a Pro-Am WRT still running it though.
Yeah, and comfortably in the top 10 and 8th place. So I mean, that's, I suspect, about where they would truly believe after qualifying they would expect to be.
Number 3, which was very quick in free practice, only 9th at the moment, although Stefan Rochelny is behind the wheel and he's dragging it up the order.
Yeah, he's just gone out and so it's just his first flying lap to 02.168. And interesting to see personal best for Rochelny in that first sector on his following lap. So he is making, again, small improvements. He needs to find what are the best part of another 2 or 3 tenths of a second, which would then take him into just about the top 4. No major improvements in the second sector, but still relatively good. 53.5. So he's coming down into Brooklands. Mercedes just ahead.
Now, winning driver last year, Guy Smith, hoping for back-to-back Silverstone wins. Is it possible? Let's find out. Guys with OJ.
It would be back-to-back wins if you win here tomorrow. How much pressure is on you, Guy?
Well, there's always pressure, but I mean, obviously being a home race, this is certainly a race that we want to do well at, but you know, the competition in the Blancpain Series is very, very tough. We see this year more cars, more competition, so it's never easy, but certainly we'll be giving it, you know, our best shot to try and win, as we always do, but it's never easy.
anyone who was driving a Ferrari at Monza felt like they had to win there. If you're in a Bentley, you're at Silverstone, you have to win.
Well, it would always be good. This is the place, if you're going to win for Bentley, this is the place to do it. But as I said, we never take anything for granted, and we know how hard this series can be. So just try to do the best we can. We're struggling a little bit at the moment in practice, so I think it's going to be tough for us, but we never give up, so we'll keep trying.
What are you struggling with out there?
Just generally a lack of grip. We're running around on pretty much old tyres from Monza, and the car's sliding around a lot. I think when we put new tyres on, we'll gain quite a bit of performance, but if it's enough or not, I don't know. So we probably won't find out until qualifying tomorrow.
There was a bit of chatter about Steve McQueen. What is this rumour about Steve McQueen?
It's a new one to me. I've never heard it.
Is that you playing dummy? You actually don't know?
No idea.
All right, we'll have to try and find out. Thank you very much, guys.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
No, it's Derek Bell's best friend, that's why. He's the brand, that's why he branded, well, he was a brand ambassador. I'm not sure he still is actually. But all Derek ever done.
We've got the cars with 23.5 minutes still to run in the session. And you're looking at number 4 Audi at the moment, which is another of the Pro-Am cars, and it's another of the Team WRT fleet for Max Cobalt, Sascha Bottemann and Peter Schotthorst, who's come from Carrera Cup Deutschland, in which he was quick but a bit wild last year. But in this, I'm afraid Schotthorst has been a bit overshadowed yet. The Gulf colours, there's your link to Steve McQueen, or a link at least, because of course the Gulf logos are on this car, and it was the Gulf liveried 917s that became so famous after the Le Mans movie. And there's a movie about a movie, isn't there? Andrew Marriott's involved in, and it's been at the Cannes Film Festival, this film about Steve McQueen and Le Mans.
Yeah, and there's actually a number of motorsport-based, either documentary or docu-factual, whatever, films in process. And one of my old teammates, Lauda, the truth effectively about the 76 accident at the Nürburgring. So suddenly I think the success of motorsport being projected into the movie house in a slightly alternative fashion rather than just watching cars go round has fired people's imaginations up to know more. And obviously someone like Steve McQueen, who was an iconic actor in the 60s and early 70s, as well as being an accomplished racing driver, finishing second at Sebring in 1970 with Peter Revson in a Porsche 908 Spider with a sort of the low downforce bodywork on it. I mean, what more can you ask? Except a Tag Heuer Monaco Steve McQueen watch.
A great enthusiast, wasn't he, as well, and loved his racing. And it was his passion to make that Le Mans movie, and of course all the problems that went with it. Another good book. It sounds like I'm on commission for this, but A French Kiss with Death, that came out about a decade ago, if you can find a copy of it these days, which is all about the making of it, and that highlights some of the problems between effectively the two factions, the Hollywood faction and the McQueen faction. But it's a fascinating read about how the movie was put together. Fight 51, this is the Duncan Cameron Matt Griffin Ferrari, which should be a potential Pro-Am winner come tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, currently in 18th spot.
28th spot.
Oh, but it's just 28.
Yeah.
It's 28. Yes, just 28.
So yeah, but
the screens are a devil to read in this backlight.
Matt Griffin is your hero behind the wheel of it. So if anybody can haul a car up from 28th, it's Matt Griffin, isn't it?
Yep, but he's not going to manage it this lap. He's got traffic ahead of him, and it's sort of wandering around. This is the Ferrari again we saw in the gravel up at Luffield, and Matt Griffin not really confident enough to take the initiative and force his way through, so he's backed off last time in the exit of Beckett's. He respects that the Ferrari he's just passed, is a gentleman car.
And a teammate, because they're all run out of AF. Those three Ferraris you see, all different liveries, but all AF Corsa cars, Amato Ferrari's team. Ian Loggy, Julian Westwood's Audi there, the Stuart Parker run car that won at the Nürburgring last year in the 1,000-kilometre race. And ahead is one of the Santilok Audis. Audi through them, and 62 cars we are anticipating getting into qualifying. Not aware that we've had any dramas that have taken anybody out of the event thus far. 20 minutes on the clock still in this session. Ferrari versus Audi here, and the Parker car, the TPR car there, has the feeling of it being Julian Westwood at the wheel, given the way that he committed to getting through the traffic there.
looking down to see some cars if they're out of position. Some of them clearly are. We'd like to see whether Craig Dolby and Sean Walkinshaw are. We had a word with Darren and a spin down at Cops. Darren Cox, obviously they run those two RNL cars, and then you've got the separate Nissan being driven by Sean Walkinshaw and Craig Dolby.
The MRS car.
Martin Plyman.
There it is.
There we go.
Powder blue now.
It is. It's changed. It changed for Brands Hatch. In dull light, it looks blue, duck egg blue, but in very bright sunshine, it just washes it out. It's quite difficult to pick up the blue. So we're interested to see what they're going to do, as there isn't actually any crossover between the two Nissan teams. They're sort of kept at separate ends of the pit lane, which is interesting at the same time as why wouldn't they do more together?
Yes, discuss. Craig Dolby, one of the drivers. Good to have him back in European racing. He was one of the stars of Super League, which of course is now defunct. He's been off racing in South America. And the car is 10th fastest. It's Sean Walkinshaw at the wheel, one of Tom's sons, the late Tom Walkinshaw's sons. Got Ryan, who's busy running teams among his many business interests, but in Australia. And Sean Walkinshaw has a team that runs single-seaters, but he's a quick GT driver. Yeah,
and that's 10th place. Good effort from Craig Dolby, Sean Walkinshaw, Martin Plowright. So that's again. So this team will be looking for nothing worse than a top 10 position, and if they can get the pace, and I know that they were looking at running fresh rubber at some point in the session. We've got just 19 odd minutes remaining now before the checkered flag comes out. So have they done their bit with the time that's now actually the drop down to 11th? Ortelli is third place. Well, in fact, it's number 12 up to second. That's the big jump.
Now let's go join OJ. He's found Andrew Cody. Talk about matters McLaren.
Andrew, are you currently a contented man with where your cars are?
Yeah, I think so. It's always very difficult with these sessions because we have a very limited amount of tyres, so it's difficult to know where we are. But I think generally it looks quite good. You know, it's a home circuit for us, and we've done quite a lot of running here. But yeah, I'm quite happy.
I mentioned this a few times to the other British teams or teams running British cars. How much pressure is on you at a race like this?
Well, I don't think any more than anywhere else. I think that everywhere we go, we're obviously under pressure to do well. I mean, for me, it's a little bit of a different thing. I'm a little bit in the background watching how the teams get on. But, you know, clearly we want to do well, and we've got all of our staff here at this race, so obviously they want to see the car do well.
And how are you finding the new setup of a new car?
The new what, sorry?
How are you finding the setup of a new car?
Yeah, very good. I mean, we're still learning. You know, with a new car, okay, it's running all over the world, but every week you learn something new. I mean, we're in Australia, Korea last week, Canada last week, you know, loads of miles, and you just learn something every week.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Andrew was racing here a couple of weeks ago at the HSCC meeting, a week ago, in fact, I think. Had a win with Martin O'Connell at the Historic Sports Car Club meeting.
That's not really fair. I mean, you've got two young guys who are really, you know, pretty good drivers, and beating up on a load of old guys who do it for fun. I mean, I would imagine that the combined age of Martin O'Connell and Andrew Kirkcaldy probably is less than many of the other competitors they're competing against.
Absolutely right, yes.
Ban them.
Both of them looked after in their careers to an extent by Sandy Watson, and it was one of his cars they were racing, I think. So let's, as we watch the Nissan charge down Wellington Straight, we've looked at the Nissan. Ahead is the Lamborghini, the Huracan, new car for this year. The session has got 15 minutes to go. We're not telling you much about the change to the order because it's not changing particularly, but you've got Audi, BMW the top two, namely number 1 Audi ahead of Frank Pereira's BMW number 12. That's been really good thus far all weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that car's just leapt up there in the last few minutes. So Frank Pereira, and I mean, if you asked us where would you place a BMW at Silverstone, you have to think that this isn't the circuit that's made for a BMW. But because it's a relatively high downforce car compared to some of the opposition, maybe it's just generating that little bit more track tire temperature than us other competitors, and that's where the performance is coming from. I mean, there's no big mysteries in my view about the technology that's in these GT3 cars. The biggest difference that you'll make at any point in the weekend in terms of a change is from a set of used tyres to a brand new set of new Pirellis, and that's where most of the time is coming from. And that again would look to me as if BMW have put a set of either new rubber or very, very fresh rubber onto that car, and they've elevated themselves within 92 hundredths of Laurens van Voor's time, which was set on his second lap, which was probably his first flying lap, and that time has stood pretty much since this session got underway, what, an hour and 15 minutes ago.
You've been looking back from this car, 333, which actually in this session hasn't sparkled in the way that it did earlier on in the day. And I just wonder whether that's because it's had more time given over to a slower driver, because it is Renat Salikov at the wheel. It's 24 fastest. Salikov is decent, but he's not as good as Seidler or Seafried.
No, but he is good in the straights. He was very quick in the straights at Monza. And that's the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, Monza is about point and squirt these days. There's only one decent corner on the racetrack. I love the place to bits, but it's been just
emasculated.
Oh, even more than that. Where here at Silverstone, you've got really quick corners. In a GT corner, you're really hanging in there. I mean, the commitment through Copse for a start. First corner you meet at the start of a flying lap. Beckett's all the way down to Stowe. Then you got Abbey. Then you got finally coming through Woodcut. Woodcut's a curve really more than a corner. Nevertheless, you're still travelling very quickly through there, and you have to be on racing line. You can't take a liberty with it. So it's a totally different kind of style of circuit.
So where is the leading Ferrari in terms of time?
Cocker up to 7th.
Yes, indeed, in the BMW.
Another BMW in the top 7.
Interesting, this, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. My Ferrari question, I think I get to, is 15th in the end. But it's an AF Corsa car, not surprisingly, but they're nowhere near as fleet as they were at Monza. There is 15, which was in the gravel in the bronze test. Carrie Mauger and Oliver Grutz in the Boutsen-Gignon BMW, Thierry Boutsen's team. There is the Johnny Cocker BMW going through behind them, Pierre Caffer's Ferrari, and there is the car that's second, Franck Pereira at the wheel of the TDS Racing BMW that he shares with Henri Essid and Eric Dermont.
Yeah, and also just going back to Nissan, Wolfgang Reip has got that car back up into the top 10.
Yeah.
And that's 2 minutes, 2 points, and there is the BMW.
And Pereira is on a quick lap. He's done 2 personal bests, and he's got to find 93 thousandths to go ahead of number 1 Audi for the top time, and he's got 1 corner to go, and here he comes.
He's done it.
And he's up towards the timing line, and he goes through now, and he doesn't go quicker. He loses out in the last sector.
Does. That's a shame. That was a lap that could have been an unexpectedly fastest lap from a BMW at this point.
But he has narrowed the margin because it was an improvement, even though it wasn't a quicker lap, and he's now 83 thousandths behind, so he's getting closer. But it's a good effort.
But he's caught up behind the Russia BMW, so that's no doubt going to slow him down. He will.
And also, of course, come the race, he has the problem of having co-drivers of a different pace.
Yeah.
So he will be the star, but then inevitably the car will drop away when he's not driving it.
But as we saw at Monza, if you have track position and your star driver starts and you hand it over, it's better to be at the front and dropping back than being at the back and know if you have no chance of getting to the front.
True enough. Yeah, see what we can preserve. So 11 more minutes are on the clock. Are we any nearer to thinking about a winner for tomorrow? Well, you've still got to go for Audi number 1 at the moment because the car is always so strong, really.
Yes, I mean, I spoke to some of the Audi people and I said, who do you see as your principal opposition? And they couldn't tell me in as many words, well, we don't think we have any. Because, frankly, that's such a strong combination. Not just on the track, but in the pit lane, the pit work, the strategy, the working out ahead of where they're going to be in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, how long ever it may be. That's what wins races, it wins endurance races. And also, the least amount of time stopped is key. If you can lose 10 seconds in the pit lane, it's very difficult to make it back up on the racetrack, especially with such a busy racetrack as we're going to see tomorrow.
Indeed so, indeed. And there are certain parts of it, of course, where you just do not want to encounter traffic. Beckett's S's, for example, you've got to be really brave to do the overtaking there, otherwise you have to sit and wait and you lose time.
If you know who it is behind the wheel, you might take the chance, but if you're not certain, then I think you might give up that 2 or so seconds just to be clear that you don't find yourself in a compromised position.
Self-preservation, yeah. Pereira pits, 10 minutes on the clock.
So I'm just waiting to see purples popping up on timing and scoring, which would indicate that some of the teams are finally going to dig deep into that set of brand new tyres they've got waiting. And in fact, we're looking at a lot of yellows, to be truthful. There are the odd greens popping up, but we would like a bit of purple.
You see a huge amount of Pirelli rubber chunked to the side of the road. That's looking out of Woodcote Corner. The Curie Cost BMW there looking pretty handy. And up on track, number 16 Ferrari. This is the Anthony Paul's Fabien Barthez car. Fabien Barthez, who was part of Sébastien Loeb's team in the French GT Championship. He's now with Jérôme Policon's Autosport Promotion squad in Blancpain. We've seen him in the Spa 24 Hours, but now doing a full season of this.
Yeah.
And the former Manchester United and Marseille goalkeeper, French national goalkeeper, is the man behind the wheel. But he's playing for your countries all very well, but he did play for Manchester United, so that's the highlight of his career, clearly. Now, the Ferrari heads down towards the end of Vale. Where is the car in terms of time? It is Barthez driving it. It's 40th fastest. I think I'm right in saying, making his Silverstone debut as well. Fabien Barthez. You find people switching from sort of speed disciplines like skiers to motor racing, for example, but football to motor racing is a bit different.
It is. It's not a usual career path that I would say I've seen very much of. But you know, if you had an interest in motorsport, and many Premier League footballers in the UK certainly are very big Formula One, motorsport, GT. In fact, most of them are driving cars like the Ferrari that Fabien Barthez is driving in right now. So they do share an interest in motorsport generally, but it's the transition from a professional sport like football. There are not many ball skills required by a racing driver, but Fabien Barthez is trying to make that transfer.
And acquitting himself pretty well, because, as we said, it's a very, very tough championship. I mean, each class is tough in itself, because they're so competitive. And he's not doing a bad job in the AM category.
Well, you're coming into a race series which is extremely professional, runs at a very, very high level of competition.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're jumping in at the deep end. I mean, okay, you've done some French national GT championships, but there's nothing like going out of your own country to big race. This is a big racetrack.
Absolutely,
You don't disrespect Silverstone.
No.
If you do, it'll bite you, and that's part of the joy of driving on these racetracks, that they really offer up major challenges to your talent.
And Barthez and Pons doing this as a two-driver team, so getting quite a lot of mileage. There's the Oman racing team, Aston Martin, which is run from that well-known Omani town of Rutan, near Kent, or in Kent. David Bartram's Motorbase team runs it, and the redoubtable Bartram, who's concentrating on GTs at the moment, while his touring car team regroups. Speed through Copse Corner. And let's find out a bit more about Lamborghini activity as well, because we've sent OJ down to the Grasser Racing Team garage. More news beckons.
Gernot, it was a fabulous performance from the team in Monza. How are you feeling after it was taken off you?
Yeah, it was quite a big shock for us. The team worked very hard. We finished the car pretty much on Thursday. We built up the two cars completely from scratch, brand new cars, and yeah, the team did a great work. The race was perfect for us, so yeah, it was a big shock for us. But yeah, we accepted the decision from the stewards. We made an appeal, and now we are waiting for it.
You were all so emotional after that first win. Everyone in the team, from the drivers all the way through to the management. How difficult is it to pick yourself up again after being knocked down slightly?
Well, as you say, if they push you down, you have to stand back up and give your best, and that's what you're trying to do now, regardless what the decision is. But yes, you're right, it was very emotional. Brand new car, Lamborghini in Monza, of course, Ferrari behind us. It's an Italian culture. It was amazing for us. Yeah, it was a big team spirit, and yeah, now we are giving the best and try to push again.
So talk me through how the Huracan is going here at Silverstone this weekend.
It was a Ferrari. Yeah, we have to do still some work. We have to find still some setups, but we are quite confident. So should be fine for us.
So it could be another win come tomorrow.
Yeah, we can't promise that, but of course that's the goal for every team.
Thank you, Gernot.
So the Grasser Racing Team optimistic, perhaps more optimistic now because there's more pace that's been found in this session. The cars do look better.
Yeah, the sister car, the one in the 19 we're looking at now, is currently up in 4th place. Interestingly, just towards the end of the session, slipped in a quick time for Kevin Estre in the McLaren. They're up to 5th place, 2:01.7. So the lap times are beginning to sort of take shape in the kind of area that we think that looking at the form book was what we expected. So this is the sister car, the 19 to the 63, which is currently in 4th place, and that's encouraging for Lamborghini.
Absolutely right, and it's a great looking car, and if you think it's good now, it's going to be more and more developed. It's just going to get stronger and stronger, isn't it?
B-O-P. Won't let you do that.
Well, the more cars they sell, and they've got orders for next year already, the more data they're going to get back.
Well,
it's going to be strong.
I did speak to somebody in the pit lane, or I should say, coming out of my club. The BRDC this time, not the IRDC. A very well-known motorsport personality who races in championships, who's here looking at GT as a future potential either offshoot or maybe possibly a replacement for the discipline he's currently involved in.
Interesting.
I thought it was very interesting.
And he could do worse than get his hands on a Huracan.
If those Huracans are going to be made available, and there's a problem for the McLaren again, and we've seen this happen before when the engine suddenly stops. There's a lot of fuel in the engine. Our Westgate's getting the turbo in it. So the whereabouts is
Beckett's S's, isn't it? Same car again. A lot of flame, man.
It is a lot of flame. There's not just. Well, that's, I suspect, more oil burning than it is fuel burning. It's
Red flag.
Turbos.
And this, I think, is going to get us to the end of the session because we've got 2 minutes and 55. And I think that's going to be that, isn't it? I can't see us restarting. Because even if it does restart, there won't be a lap time left in it, so there's no point restarting.
No.
So, and it's got going again. Race director's nightmare. You call for a stoppage and then the wretched thing sets off.
So what do? Do you let the red flag stand?
You have to, don't you?
Or do you withdraw because everybody's lost the lap that they're on?
Session will not be resumed. The race director has communicated.
Absolutely.
So, there you go.
Good job.
So that's day 1 of the Blancpain activity over. And just to look at the top 10, the best time of the session done by the number 1 Audi, 2 minutes 1.097 from the Franck Pereira BMW, 2 minutes 1.180. So on a lap that's 3.6 miles, the difference between the top 2 is 83 thousandths of a second. Who says GT3 is not close? BOP must be working somewhere.
Well, I think that's the problem. It is so close between all these different brands, and that's what makes it so attractive.
Yeah. Third fastest, the new Audi, the one example of it, the Marcus Winkelhock car, and he'll be the gun in that. From 63, the Lamborghini Venturini. 5th fastest, Kevin Estre's McLaren, and 6th fastest, Michael Meadows' Aston Martin. Just for John, there's a Porsche to have a drool over.
Oh, aren't they lovely?
It's a shame there aren't more of them, and it's a shame that they're not a competitive GT3 car anymore. And Porsche, hopefully, when it's finished its efforts to make the WEC programme regularly beating Audi and Toyota, they'll then concentrate again on GT3.
Well, they've got so much to think about in their own one-make series and other championship. I mean, the new RSR was just launched last weekend at Nürburgring. Whether that would be an eligible GT3 car, I don't know, because there's so many slight variations in GT3 rules for each individual championship. So I'd love to see a Porsche racing. I'd love to see them competing for victories against all the other wonderful brands that we have here at Blancpain.
But they come and go. You know, there are seasons where there are no Porsches, and then suddenly a bit more effort is put in, and the cars have an upgrade and a this and a that and an aero tweak, and more people buy them, and they're competitive again. But then Porsche, sort of, like you say, goes off and looks at its one-make program and kind of looks at things, a different program, different years, and therefore when GT3 isn't being concentrated upon, other manufacturers steal a march. The Nissan pulled back into the garage. As we say, the session isn't going to be restarted. So tomorrow, 9 o'clock, is going to be when qualifying gets underway. The 3 elements, 15 minutes per session. And as the cars head down to the pit lane, we've got a chance, as you see, Buncombe Junior, to hear from David Bartram at Motorbase with OJ.
Dave, it's gone quiet, I think, as the end of the session. How has this session been for you? How are you finding it this weekend?
Yeah, not too bad. It's always nice to be at Silverstone, so no matter what, we find it good. We've got a hand coming across there. it's always good at Silverstone. So, you know, I'm glad to be here. I think today it's gone okay so far. The Astons are very different car to everybody else. There's only two of us. You know, when you see so many Ferraris or different things that are out there, it's quite nice to be in a minority and be at home. So, the session's gone well so far.
Well, so far, whatever happens, you must be looking for a result here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if we're going to get a result, it should be Silverstone because it's home territory. The Aston does historically go well here, and the drivers know the circuit well. So, you know, we hope we've got an advantage. Whether we have come race day, anything can happen, but let's hope we find out we've got one.
You talk about being in a minority. Why do you think there's a lack of Astons now on the start line?
I don't know. I mean, there's not too many of them around, but I don't know. I wish there was more. You know, we've got another one. We'd like to get out amongst all this. So, if anyone wants to come and drive that, we'd gladly add one. But no, I think there should be more. They're a very good car, and they suit this track particularly well. I think most tracks in Blancpain it suit. It's just Monza it struggle with. But other than that, you know, we're just glad to be at Silverstone.
It is a fantastic lineup of tracks through the Blancpain series. Is this the most special for you, though?
Yeah, I mean, we only do the endurance. I went and had a look at the sprint at Brands Hatch, which is our local circuit. But we only do the endurance because it's the type of racing we want to fit in with our British GT programme. But you've got to say, you know, the places we go, the best there is to go to. The 5 circuits they've got are great. I really enjoy them, and I think the drivers do as well. The cars look great there. So when you look at the amount of cars, you know, it was 63 at Monza, there's 61 this weekend. That's an amount of cars to race against, and there's some top drivers out there. So anything this weekend for us, we do. You know, if we get a result, I'll be very proud of the team for doing so.
It's busy, but is it more exciting?
It's busy, yeah. It's fantastically exciting. I mean, you go on the grid, and we qualified 20th at Monza, and we were a little bit disappointed. And we stood on the grid and looked forward, and you think, oh, it's a long way to the front. Then you turn around and look back, and you look at the other 40 cars that are behind you. You think, actually, this isn't too bad. It's very spectacular. There's every car you'd ever want to buy if you was a lottery winner sitting on the grid. And, you know, you just look at it and think, my God, this is a great place to be.
And next weekend you're back here for the British GT racing. It's a very busy time for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to come to Silverstone again. You know, we're back with 2 cars next week for British GT. We're leading the teams in that. We're second overall, 1 point behind with our other car. And I shall look forward to coming back next weekend and trying to get the lead of the championship properly for the driver championship.
Thank you so much. Good luck for tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
So David Bartram goes off to oversee his Oman racing team car. Why is it Oman racing team? Well, it's Ahmad Al-Hafi who is Omani. He brings the government money, the tourism money, and goes racing. And talking to Daniel Lloyd, Oman. Ahmad Al-Hafi, the Omani driver, is there on the left. Daniel Lloyd pursuing international racing, former Porsche GB scholarship winner, and after a season of racing in the Sirocco Cup, came back to racing in the UK, but has become quite a busy GT racer now. So they discuss the session and what might be tweaked for tomorrow, and qualifying will be at 9 AM. A few look back at the highlights of the session. The session from the afternoon, the pre-qualifying, beginning with Hubert Haupt's Mercedes, very busy indeed, working its way through traffic. The pre-qualifying session, not necessarily about times, more about setup of cars, but 55 McLaren twice in the wars and ultimately bringing out a red flag to curtail the fun. Gary Kondakov put his Ferrari big time into the gravel. That actually could be retrieved with the help of marshals and a snatch vehicle and get it back out again. Alex Buncombe's Nissan was carving its way through traffic, trying to find clear road, but it was not easy. Every time you thought you got a clear bit of circuit, there was something or somebody in the way. But when there was a clear bit of road, the Nissan was quick and Alex Buncombe dragged it up the order. And at the end of the session, it was an Audi topping the times once more. The number 1 WRT car, the quickest. Others were launching themselves over the curbs. And once more, Club Corner was the scene of lots of people running wide. The Andre Berzin, number 25 Ferrari, getting in the way of a Nissan heading up towards the loop. But 23, looking for a gap. Proof of just how busy the session was. And lap after lap, people complaining about traffic. BMW, Ferrari, Nissan, and further back McLaren amongst the different brands represented. And 333, the car that inherited the win at Monza, this time in the Pro Cup, looking very rapid in the hands of Norbert Siedler. That is a car to watch when we get to qualifying here tomorrow. The second round of the Blancpain Endurance Series is going to be another of the traditional 3-hour format. And of course, it's the 3-part qualifying session, 1 session per driver. It all starts at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Join us for that. From OJ Borg, John Watson and David Addison, for now, it's goodbye. We'll see you at 9 AM.